Thank you for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I am your host, Mike Luke, joined by the boss, Saul Bookman. Hello, Saul Bookman. How are you?
Hello, Michael Luke. How are you doing?
Looking very comfortable in that in that chair right there. Very comfortable.
It's pretty comfortable.
It looks very comfortable. What do you have behind you? Is
I
that
don't
over
know.
your right shoulder? Is that something Circle K?
That is some Circle. Oh yeah, that's definitely Circle K.
What is
Snacks are getting a little depleted out here in these streets.
All right, I was going to say, all right, well, yes, we have got a lot to get. We have got a lot to get to this show. We are going to talk about the Big 12 media naming rights. We're going to talk about the best teams, or is this the best bench of the Tommy Lloyd era? Trey Townsend, Keshad Johnson, totally opposite people. What to expect, and all of that kind of stuff. But first, there's something going on today, Saul, that we need to be reminding people about. Is there not?
Say that again. Sorry.
There's something going on today that we need to be reminding people of, if I'm not mistaken.
Is there? Oh, yeah. The Mercury takeover. Let's go.
Yes.
Erica Day. I just picked up Stephen Pridgeon from the airport. Let's go.
All right. Very, very cool. We got all right. Very cool stuff going on there. We will talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. All right. And we have Brad Alice here as well. Oh, very nice. Let's see here. All right. Well, all right, now let's talk Big 12 media here. The naming rights. Saul Bookman, I am a big fan of the naming rights. I do not care what the name of the conference is. If it gets you $50 more million, $80 million, I don't care what it is. We're all about money at this stage of the game. If that closes the gap a little bit, I say go for it.
1,000,000%. You go for it. Without a doubt, you don't even stop. I'm trying to think. Kansas would be the only thing that would stop. It would prevent a brand like Nike sponsoring a whole conference because they're an Adidas school.
Right.
Ooh, Kansas. But
right.
If you're the Big 12, this is what I love about Brett Yormark in the short time that we've kind of known him. Smart guy, knows exactly what he would like to see the future of the conference look like. He knows exactly who he's identifying in order to get them into the conference. B, he is very, very good at thinking and outside the box.
Yes.
And in today's day and age of the digital world and the opportunities for NIL, it's okay for brands to now go outside the box. You see stadiums and schools are thinking about putting logos on their fields as well. Like, this just makes way too much sense. I love Brett Yormark for doing this. This is a home run. Whoever you get, it'll be a home run, as long as it's not some janky ass freaking sponsorship.
Brad?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think outside the box, but it has to be intelligent. I believe Larry Scott thought outside the box by wanting to play games in China, and things like that. No, but corporate sponsors are the way of the future. Again, as Saul says, you don't want to be the, Manny's Auto Repair, for $50 as a corporate sponsor. But yes, a legitimate insurance company, things like that make perfect sense. Obviously, we as college football and college basketball people don't want to see the abundance of logos, but we're already at the point where the video boards on the side of the basketball court have local and national sponsors. We're used to uniforms having a Nike logo. I don't think whatever it is, an All-State logo, or if someone wants to put a Circle K logo on it.
I like that idea.
Ironically enough, one of my jobs during college was selling advertising for the old Ice Cats, and one of the deals the only deal I was actually able to sell was the face-off circle had a Circle K logo instead of a red dot. So
yeah, and honestly, people don't really care in this day and age. Look at it this way: I grew up where it was Boston Garden and the Great Western Forum. Nobody calls it that anymore. It's certainly something for the past, but it's TD Waterhouse now. Now again, it sounds weird at first, but that's just the way it is now. You're looking to capitalize off stuff. And Brett Yormark, again, this is the guy that basically has been ahead of the curve the entire step of the way. Keep in mind, when this dude took over the Big 12, they said that this conference was going to fall apart because you're losing Texas and Oklahoma. You're going to get it'll be a leftover. It'll be a Mountain West. He said a couple things that I thought was interesting. He said, we're going to add schools that we want. We are going to get everybody a raise, and we were going to remain on linear platforms. He did all of that while the Pac-12 just sat around. This is a dude of action. And I will always, especially after the Larry Scott era and the Kleefkoff, I will always take action, Saul, over, well, we hope that this works out. Hopefully it lands in our lap. This dude gets it.
1,000,000%. Again, man, we can go on and on and on about all the things that Larry Scott just completely jacked up, and then that George Kliavkoff couldn't figure out before it was too late. We could do that. We could probably spend a whole week of episodes on that. But Brett Yormark gets it. He understands the perspective. He understands where the future of college sports is going, and that's the most important thing. Larry Scott was so foolish in thinking that everybody was just going to stand pat, or there would only be one or two teams that move a conference here and there, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's all over for the Pac-12. Brett Yormark is being very aggressive. He's being active. He's still looking at other potential schools, especially from the ACC, to potentially come over to the Big 12. You look at a school like Gonzaga. We've heard about UConn. We've heard about a lot of different schools that might potentially join the conference. At the end of the day, I truly believe we'll end up having just the 3 conferences, obviously, and it might even morph into 2 at some point. But who's going to be the one that's going to be the big dog? Well, right now, the Big 12 is growing at a rapid pace. You want to get on board before it's too late.
Right. Exactly, Brad.
I mean, at worst, Yormark is positioning the Big 12 to be the number 3 conference. And frankly, with the, what do they call it? The SESPN or whatever, and the Big 12, obviously, or the Big 10, very much linked to Fox. If you can position yourself as number 3, and keep the ACC as the clear number 4, or even a possible merger. Now, unfortunately, what I don't like is the reason I like college sports is they're not the NFL, they're not MLB, they're not the NBA. So I think if it comes down to 2 super conferences, I think that could be the eventual, I won't say death knell, but I think you could see an overcorrection the other way where we splinter back into 20 conferences. But Yormark, again, if you're at worst number 3 when the dust settles, I think you're in a good position because there's plenty of money to go around. And even, again, if you're really just trying to keep pace with the other 2 and distance yourself from the ACC, which is, essentially Clemson and FSU bolting away from being in big trouble.
Right. And I thought Dave Hickey made a really good point one time when he was on here. He said, listen, he says, there's going to be another blow up in college athletics. He said, the most important thing for Arizona is to be able to be at an entity where when that blow up does occur, you're going to be one that is going to be suited for. And he said, if a school, and, this is obviously Oregon State, Washington State we're talking about, but if schools like that get left out and they're in the Mountain West or whatever, they might not have a seat at the table. Again, this is going to be something that's going to be different. The most important thing was getting stability. Yormark provides that, and he's thinking outside the box here. Now, is this going to close the gap entirely with the SEC and the Big Ten? No, of course not. But he's still finding ways to get his schools more money, and this probably won't be the last thing that he figures out as well. On top of, he's clearly made it a point, Saul, that he wants this to be the best basketball conference in the country, and he succeeded at that.
No, I totally agree. The SEC owns football right now. Yeah, you have your Michigan and Ohio States, and I get that. But the SEC is the SEC, and that's what that conference is known for. They're known for their legendary football programs. The Big 12 can absolutely make a case that they're going to be known for basketball. So you want to be known for one of those 2 things, right? You want to be the premier conference in one of those 2 things. And I think the more the Big 12 continues to expand, the more that Brett Yormark realizes, like, yes, football is going to drive in revenue. We would make no bones about it. They drive in the most revenue, but that doesn't mean that we can't be known for something that is elite. And being the elite basketball conference in the country is certainly going to be that for the Big 12. And then you just hope that the drop off between the excellence of basketball and football is not significant enough to ruin your conference's brand. And right now it isn't. You got some solid teams that are going to be in the top 15 in the country starting off the season this year in football. And you hope 1 or 2 of them are going to make the college football playoff and then really make a run. And we've seen that in the past with TCU. We've seen that with Baylor. We've seen that with other schools that are toy around with that elite status in the top 5. So if you can continue to do that, I mean, it would be great, and it'd be gravy for the conference, and more money will start to come in during the next deal.
Right. I also think, Brad, that basketball is underrated in the grand scheme of things. I think that this is something where football schools just like to look down and say, oh, that's basketball. we do not deal with that. Listen, March Madness is the biggest entity in all of sports for a month period. You look at the inventory on ESPN, ABC from about November through March, that's loaded with stuff. and that's basketball. Basketball's not going anywhere. And so when Yormark said that I think that there's an untapped area in basketball, I totally agree with him. I've always agreed with him. Not that that's the reason that he is saying that. I don't think he knows that I am saying that. But
well, I think what you see is there's a couple fold. One is as he looks at the landscape of media moving forward, the need for live inventory on streaming services is huge.
Right.
The three things to look at: one is college basketball. Two is the two extremes of the combat sports. One is, mixed martial arts, and the other being professional wrestling. And they're all getting money thrown at them by streaming services because of the need for things that people have to sit through ads, because you don't want the results. And I think the other thing you're looking at is, while the NBA is doing very well, the NBA is as popular as it's ever been, the bulk of the NBA is still in the north, the big cities, Northeast, West Coast. Where is it not as strong? The Southeast, and that's one reason SEC football is so big. You got you used to have two football teams out there. Now you got 4 or 5. The Midwest. I mean, yes, the upper Midwest with Indiana's and Ohio's and things like that, but there's no team in Kansas City. There's one team in Oklahoma. There's, a little bit in Texas. That's a lot of television sets that are still going to tune into college basketball.
Right.
And if you can be a premium game once, twice, 3 times a week, because you have 9, 10, 11 teams, as many Suns fans as there are in Tucson, it's still a college town.
Right.
Kansas City, Missouri, which is, again, a mid-sized media market, that's Kansas basketball. And until they get a new version of the Kansas City Kings there, it will remain a college basketball hotbed. So I think what Yormark is saying is streaming services are going to need – college football is great. It's once a week. Big 12 is 2 games times 16 teams, and it might be 18 teams. It might be 20 teams. That's a lot of
time slots.
That's a lot of inventory. And again, if you bring in UConn, you bring in Gonzaga as basketball-only entities, you add that to Arizona, Kansas, Baylor, Iowa State, even people who don't care about those locations per se, who enjoy good basketball, are going to watch those games. And that is going to provide additional money. And again, if it's marketed right, you're going to have people wanting to see a preview of the NCAA tournament, B, the future NBA players. And I think college basketball has not necessarily done a great job marketing their young players, because they are one and done. And again, I've said that has gone a long way into Caitlin Clark's popularity, as you got 3 years of her notoriety. But again, Yormark is a marketer. He'll find ways to market these players and these teams.
I think the interesting thing here is that if you look at the NFL right now and how everything is starting to be kind of disseminated on various platforms, I mean, I swear you got to pay like $500 for the year to not only get like DirecTV Sunday Ticket, but then you got to get YouTube TV, and you got to get Amazon, and then I think there's another service right now that's going to be exclusive.
Netflix is going to have games.
Netflix, yeah. So like it's a variety of different angles and different platforms, and I think some of these schools or some of these conferences are going to take a look at that and be like, okay, why sign a $500 million deal for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years with ESPN when maybe we could do 300 million, and then we can pick up another 150 here and another 150 here and another 150 here, spread it out, make more money as a whole for your conference. And I think that's probably going to be something that they're going to take a look at. And I would be shocked if Brett Yormark isn't already looking at that, because there are some prime opportunity, and I don't say that with a pun. I think there's some prime opportunity on Amazon. Amazon is starting to build out their sports packaging. You look at a bunch of different platforms. Netflix is now starting to get into the game, obviously with the NFL. They've already got into the documentary side of sports with all these different specialty programs. You would be foolish to think, and this is the one thing about the Pac-12 that I absolutely disagreed on with everybody else. You heard everybody saying, oh, well, Apple TV would be a terrible deal. Apple TV would be a bad deal because of this, this, and this, and this. No, Apple TV should have been part of the deal. It shouldn't be the entire deal. And if they would have done their due diligence and made Apple like not the exclusive partner, but a partner, and got that money, and then also attached it to like maybe Amazon or ESPN or whoever else, then that would have made far more sense. You would have been able to build that package across the board. But instead, they were trying to be exclusive with Apple, which I didn't think was a terrible. How many people have a damn iPhone or have some type of Apple product in their house? Like most people do. And so the fact that people were saying that like, it would be hard to find those games. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be any more difficult than turning on your streaming service that you have now. What's the difference? And so I thought that they were okay on that side. I just thought that they got a lot of flack for nothing.
I think the thing, and I argued this with Mike, is kids, and I say kids being probably 25 and under, consume content differently than we do. Yeah. What do I do when I get home? I turn on DirecTV, figure out what game is on, right? Or, for me, what cooking show is on, what wrestling is. Kids don't. They watch YouTube. They watch YouTube. So what does my son do? Dad, Logan Paul's fighting, and now it's been canceled, but Logan Paul or Jake Paul's fighting Mike Tyson. Do we have Netflix? Well, yeah, we got Netflix. The other day, hey, Joey Chestnut got banned from that. Apparently, he's eating on Netflix on the same day. Can we watch that? They watch stream content to figure out what to watch later.
Yes.
My son, plays baseball. He devours the Bat Bros, if anyone knows the Bat Bros, Trevor Bauer. So he wants to say, hey, can we get Mexican baseball? Because that's what Trevor Bauer is playing. So I think what you're going to do is if you are smart with it, let's say the Big 12 is being streamed on Apple. Well, then Apple should be flooding whatever, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever, with videos of their content. So kids go, hey, I want to watch Kansas, Arizona. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And I think, again, because I don't think, obviously the basketball diehards are flipping on, but a lot of kids who are your future consumers are going to be like, I want to watch that because I saw a trailer, because I saw a video, because, let's use an example. Caleb Love has his own streaming channel, and I saw his video, and he was dunking 360s. I want to watch him play against Kansas or Duke. Or that's how I think it's going to be consumed in the future. And if you're at the forefront of it, again, do you need some network over there? Yes, because there's still a lot of 40, 50, 60-year-old people who have deep pocketbooks, but your future audience is streaming, and they're primarily streaming.
The problem with the deal, though, is that, yes, while streaming is the wave of the future, nobody wanted to go into straight streaming. And the problem, though, too, is that no school wanted to hear from Apple because it was going to be exclusively Apple. Apple was only going to do this if it was just exclusively Apple. And so when Apple comes to you with a $24 million deal and they try pitching you saying, but guess what? After 2 or 3 years, this can blow up into 38, 39, $40 million. If you're a school, you just can't go with that at that point.
Yeah, no, 1,000,000% you can't.
Right, because you've been sold that BS nonstop about how there's going to be money at the end of the table. There was none of that. It
was the right idea with the wrong plan.
Yes.
Or the wrong idea of the right theme.
If these conferences are smart, they're going to use linear as the baseline and the stability platform while they continue to grow the digital products. And then there's going to be a threshold moment or a flashpoint moment where linear becomes less relevant than digital. And when that happens, you'll see a super shift the other way, and it'll be hard to get linear channels, streaming or broadcasting any sports.
Yeah, but to see, that's also kind of and we're going to get to basketball here in a second, but that's also kind of the malfeasance of the Pac-12 is that they thought when they had a deal from ESPN, when ABC, and they're like, well, we're going to sit on this one. And then Brett Yormark's like, all right, I'm going to take that deal. I need stability. I need that linear aspect. And then so in the Pac-12, and you guys know this, when you're negotiating from a position of weakness, Apple's not looking to overpay you. Apple's not going to say, hey, guess what? By the way, I know you could get 32 million over there, but why don't we give you even more? No, they know you're boxed into a corner. And that's just kind of how everything works. It gets back to Yormark as well, where Yormark's like, all right, man, I'm going to take this deal. I'm jumping the loop right here. And keep in mind, it is what it is.
Apple wasn't stupid. Like, if you remember, Apple understands value. They understand the road ahead. If you recall, they're the ones that signed Dre and Beats for $3.2 billion at the time, and that was unheard of for a speaker company or a headphone company to get that kind of revenue from a brand to take over. But they understood the value and where that was going. And so when you looked at the Pac-12, the reason why the Pac-12 didn't get crazy amounts of money up front is if you're just being honest about the Pac-12, like it was not looking good. The football in the Pac-12, outside of maybe 4 or 5 schools, it was not really relevant, and it was deteriorating compared to the rest of the country. And so why would you invest that kind of high dollar amount to a conference that you don't know is going to be stable enough to give you the results that you need streaming wise? And so that's why they come down lower, because they understood the value and they knew it was an inherent risk. Now, could it have grown and gotten back on track and everything? Sure, it could have, but it didn't look like it was going to, especially not with Larry Scott or Kliavkoff.
Saul, what you?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was just gonna say the Pac-12A was, yeah, you're right, position of weakness. It's also a bizarre conference where you have these great, big, giant media markets who don't care.
Yes.
Good point.
Again, I don't know if the stat was relevant at the end, but I know at one point the University of Arizona streams were the most watched streams across almost every sport. Maybe not football. Granted, some of them were 12,000 people watching, whatever, a tennis match or whatever. But they were also outperforming ASU up in Phoenix. That's more what the Big 12 is. It's these dedicated fan bases in non-traditional media markets, but everyone watches. That entire region in Texas where, around Lubbock, and again, major media, no, but everyone's watching. You've got a dedicated media market, even with Kansas basketball. Kansas football not so much because you got the Chiefs, but that's a 1.5 sport town. Apologies to the Royals who are playing well. People watch.
Matt Mulebach would not be happy with that.
No, and then the Royals are playing great right now. My apologies to them, but year in and year out, they don't. But those people, whether you're Waco, you're Lubbock, you're Ames, and that whole area around it, they watch, they stream, they consume. Whereas, there's 100 million people in Los Angeles, but 54 of them care about UCLA football.
All right. Saul Bookman, what can you tell me about Chicken and Pickle?
Chicken and Pickle is dope. It's a pretty cool facility. They have, I think maybe something like 20 pickleball courts. Some of them are outside underneath the overhang with the misters. Some of them are indoors, but it's a fantastic facility. They have tremendous food, and it is also the spot where we will be doing our PHNX trivia night next 1 week from today, next Thursday, from 7 to 9 p.m. Listen, we encourage, if you're up here in the Valley, because I know it's a hard trek from Tucson, I get it. But if you're up here in the Valley, we encourage you to put a foursome together to come out and compete against all the other. I think people are taking sides. They're representing a specific team or pod when they go out there. So that's kind of cool. So we have a little Mercury section. We have a Sun section, Cardinals, D-backs, and everybody's kind of competing for the top prize. But it's going to be fun. It is complete sports trivia. So that should be fun. It'll be a good time out there. I unfortunately will not be there.
I was responsible for some of these questions from an Arizona perspective. Will be interesting, very interesting. But check it out. Head on over to chickenpickle.com to see all the fun that you can have at the Glendale location. Going to be a very, very good time. All right, now, let's talk a little bit about some Arizona basketball here and the Arizona basketball bench. So Tommy Lloyd is looking to add another player to this roster. We will probably have some more information on that here in the next. Right now, you got 3 dudes that are guaranteed to play, and then you got a couple wild cards as well. I like this bench a great deal. I think you can make the case that this is the best bench of the Tommy Lloyd era going into it. Now, got to give Brad Allis a lot of credit. Brad Allis said before the season that he thought Jaden Bradley was better than Kylan Boswell. Brad Allis, you were right. I was wrong. I do apologize to you, Brad Allis. But now looking at this one, though, you got Tobe Awaka up front, who is perfect for what you want in the Big 12. Absolutely ideal from a rebounding point perspective. Then you've also got, obviously, Carter Bryant, 5-star kid. You've also got Anthony Del Orso, shooter. And then you're probably going to be adding another one, maybe a 5-star. Guys, I like this bench quite a bit. Saul Bookman, what say you?
It's very good. It's very, very good. I don't know if it's the best bench. Awaka, I need to see him a little bit more. I want to see him develop his shot a little bit more, especially on the interior. I think he's been solid for Tennessee, but he wasn't asked to do much. He had Dalton Connect over there that was absolutely balling and scoring at a high level. So when he gets here, he's gonna have to be able to contribute a little bit more, because we saw when Bala was struggling scoring down low how kind of inefficient sometimes Arizona would become. So you just need consistency from him. But the other pieces, Carter Bryant obviously is the one that you're going to look at and you're like, okay, he could take this bench unit from a B or an A to like A plus, especially considering that he could potentially leave after 1 year. Hell, he could even find himself into the starting unit at some point this season if there's injury or other things that happen, and maybe somebody from the starting unit drops down to the bench, and the bench is still good. So I agree. I think this is very good, but we'll let it ride out first before we say it's the best ever.
All right, Saul Bookman, you have to go do boss things now. This is correct.
We do. Thanks, guys. Have a good
weekend.
Appreciate
you, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right, Brad, what do you think about this bench unit?
I think what you do is you have two guys in Del Orso and Carter Bryant who are probably good enough to be starters if the roster construction was different. Certainly Carter Bryant, assuming he's just not too far behind, and he certainly doesn't look it physically. Whether it's the best or not, I don't know. I still have some concern. I still would like one more, and I don't know if it's Conrad Martinez.
I agree.
Because I think the guys they're looking at are scoring types, whether
right.
it's Will Riley or I know there's an overseas guy they're looking at. Is Conrad Martinez, even if it's just, I just don't know if I really want Carter or not Carter, Caleb Love being my backup point guard.
Doesn't this very much have a Jason Gardner type feel where you're like, Jaden Bradley, you need to play the entire game?
Yeah, and in which case I think Conrad Martinez could be your Jason Rainey or who's the other guy? Ash. Who would literally play John Ash, who would literally play like 45 seconds to a minute each half.
Right.
Like they bring Gardner off it at whatever with 8:12 remaining in the first half.
Lamont Frazier.
Yeah, although there were games where Frazier didn't even get off. Literally, Lute would with like 10 seconds left before the TV timeout, pull Gardner out, put John Ash or Jason Rainey in, and then by the time the TV timeout was over, Gardner was back in. He was literally playing 38 minutes a game. He was also an amazing cardio athlete coming from his wrestling background. I could see that. Again, can Love handle some of that load? Yeah, I think he can. But yeah, I could see Conrad Martinez carving out, and it literally might be 3-4 minutes a game, but they might be important minutes.
What's the best bench in U of A history? That's an interesting point. That was
well, you had 01. You had
the one that changed things the most. I always thought was Hassan and Iggy, but they didn't play them enough a lot of the time, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it was Hassan, Iggy. Bynum was gone by then. Isaiah Fox.
Mm-hmm.
The 88 era, 88, 89 era. You were pulling future NBA veteran Judd Buechler and Sean Rooks in 89 off the bench. You had Luke Walton coming off the bench in 01 till he got, so yeah, you've had some pretty deep benches.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to
say there's probably some in the I remember some in the early 90s when I was in college where, you've got like a Wayne Womack, you've got Stowe, but which were probably the fifth best team in the Pac-12.
Khalid is a freshman.
Exactly. Yeah. Or Damon as a freshman. Yeah. Some of those benches where you're literally, but that was when guys had to pay their dues and spend 2 years coming off the bench, and then they become a starter as a junior.
What I very much like about Tobe Awaka, though, is that I think that he provides you some much needed insurance, William Brad Alice, because listen, I like Mount Crevis. You like Mount Crevis as well. Brad Alice, by the way, we got to give Brad Alice a lot of credit, a lot of kudos. Brad Alice said this before the season. He said that he thought Jaden Bradley was better than Kylan Boswell. Very, very true. He also said that he liked Mount Crevis more than Morauskas. Turned out that was a good point as well. Brad Alice batting 2 for 2. Now, let me ask you this.
I will say this.
Don't be modest. Don't be
No.
modest.
I'm going to toot my own horn. There's only been a few guys I've been absolutely wrong on. Now, granted, I used to be at all the recruiting events.
Right.
So I had the two guys I was most wrong on. One was Mustafa Shakur, who's still a 4-year starter.
Well, yeah, but but he sucked. Everybody was wrong on him.
And Jamel Horn. I thought Jamel Horn.
You thought he was Richard Jefferson.
No, I thought he was Iggy. I thought he was what Iggy would have been as a junior. I thought he was a small forward who could pass, rebound. I didn't know he was a head case. I mean, he was still, again, a 4-year contributor, but
did I ever tell you about my class I had with him? that I think it's
No.
going to be a little bit, and we'll get back to Awaka here in a second. But so I had a class with, as an undergrad, I had a class with Jamel Horn, and this is the Derek Williams freshman year. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, and we sat next to each other because I guess fairly close. And so anyways, like I kind of nerded out a little bit, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, this Derek Williams guy is really, really good. And then he looks at me and he's like, nah, he's like, he messes up in practice all the time. He ain't all that. And I'm like, all right, dude, get out of here with that stuff. Like, okay.
Here's the thing. I didn't have any expectations to Derek Williams until I went to go to a pickup.
Right.
It was one of the early pickups, September, when they used to let you go. And it took me about 4 minutes because I didn't see Derek play in high school because he wasn't considered Arizona good. So I didn't see him.
Right.
And it was like, first you're like, wait, that dude's bigger than advertised, longer than advertised. And it took, again, about 4 minutes to see just how smooth and athletic he was. And I was there with Schuster. And we're just like, why haven't we heard more about this guy? I didn't think he was National Player of the Year candidate in year 2, but we knew it took literally minutes to be like, yeah, this dude's different.
Well, it was kind of like with Gilbert. It's kind of like with Gilbert Arenas. Like when I got to see Gilbert Arenas. I didn't get to see Derek Williams in those preseason, but I remember as a kid because this was when with Lute, where you could just go in there. And I was there. I was excited to see Ruben Douglas because, Ruben Douglas to me, I thought Ruben Douglas was going to be kind of a Michael Dickerson type, a couple years after, but, same body type, not quite the athlete shooter though. And then Gilbert Arenas was like clearly on a loaded team. If you just watched pure skill, how he got to where he wanted, how he got to the basket, he was clearly the best, most talented player on the team. It was wild.
Yeah. And what's funny is no one knew about him except the Sporting News,
right?
Who
Mike DeCourcy?
I think it was DeCourcy, and he was doing his top 5 freshman point guards. Number 1, Jason Gardner. Number 5, Gilbert Arenas.
Yeah.
And that was after both had signed. He's like, people are talking about Gardner, and rightfully so, but don't discount the unheralded player from North Hollywood or whatever. That was a Rod Detention guy.
I want to address Big 12 Bobby here for a second. Technically, he didn't suck, but I'm going to say this. Shakur to me was the beginning of the end of the Lute era because this was a player that was never held accountable for any, and he was a good kid, so I'm not saying that, but he was never held accountable for anything on the court. And players after a while started to resent him. You know this. I mean, when they called him the golden child, that was not a term of affection. It was because Lute had a blind spot for him. The one thing, though, that I'll say about Shakur that always really bothered me is he had no flair for the big moment. Whenever there was a last-second shot, he would jump in the air, throw it over his back. There was never anything outside of that lucky bank shot that I think he made one time
against like USC or something.
He just had, whatever the moment was big, he was never there. And that's always that to me, that was always kind of the beginning of the end of the Lute era.
Arizona almost lost Salim Stoudemire because of how he treated Shakur, because Salim could be an a-hole. He tortured Sean Livingston. If you've ever heard this story in a pickup game, that cost Livingston to not consider Arizona anymore. He was so
the thing
mean.
with Shakur that drove Salim up a wall is that Shakur would sit at the top of this just looking at wide open Salim, and then it was like he would wait until the guy got to him, and then he would pass to him. It was just we're giving Salim credit.
Oh, Salim may be my favorite Wildcat of all time. If people don't know, Salim, my favorite Salim moment is still probably when Arizona's running clock against Kansas late, and it swings to him and he jacks up the 3 and nails it. That happened right in front of me. I was on press row. Me and Rob Lance used to do the left-handed doom.
Great Rob Lance.
No Salim slander here at all. He's literally one of my favorite Wildcats of all time. But Lute had blinders for guys as he got older. It was Jason Gardner at first, as in a great interview I had with Ricky Anderson. I'm like, Lute's really hard on you. And he's like, yeah, because he knows he can be. He's like, and I said, so like when Jason Gardner gets in trouble, he's like, I get yelled at.
Right.
And it continued to Shakur, except Gardner got better. Gardner kept working.
Well, and let's be honest, I think Gardner is overrated big picture at the U of A. But I mean, it's let's be honest here. Tony Jones, the great Tony Jones in the house. Good call, Tony Jones. But I mean, let's be honest here. The fact that guy's jersey being retired over Damon's is absurd.
Well, that's because of all the silly rules.
No, that's all crap. They got all rid of that stuff. You know what?
Yeah.
You know what that was? You know why that all those stupid little things were put in, right? Was to keep Miles Simon out by Jim Livengood.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because you sued the school.
Well, you
didn't go to class and you sued. And granted, he should have sued the school. They gave up his academic records, but
wouldn't you sue the school? They gave up his academic records.
Yeah, but I went to class.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that. Yeah, didn't Whitlock come up with that article too? Wasn't it Whitlock?
Probably back when Whitlock was a really good journalist instead of
a now he's just.
Oh, when he wrote for the Kansas City Star, he was great.
He was big time. He was great.
Yeah,
but
then again, there was a time when Skip Bayless was a really good writer too.
For sure. But just going back to the Big 12, I like Awaka a lot because back to Mount Crevis for a second. I like Crevis, but I will say that with Crevis, Crevis is definitely still an unknown when it comes to things where, I think Awaka, that he's going to commit a lot of fouls, but he's still played enough at Tennessee in a good conference to know that he's going to be able to get a lot of rebounds. He's going to be able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, I think the wild card in the front court is probably Vasar. Can he give you minutes?
Are you a Vasar guy?
No, because I haven't seen enough.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I saw more from Dylan Anderson, and I was a little upset Dylan Anderson left. Not as upset as you were, but you've got to be able to. There are going to be games where Crevis is in foul trouble.
Right.
So yeah, you need. You're going to need Vasar at some point, and that's because Awaka picks up fouls too, right. And the Big 12 is physical, and everyone has a front court. So yes, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm getting out of Townsend and Carter Bryant.
Right.
Just how good Bryant is, I don't know, and just how much Townsend adapts, but you know what you're getting there. Right. You don't know what you're getting from these other guys, including Crevis. Well, we know the floor for Crevis is good.
Right.
I don't know what the ceiling is. I have a feeling they think it's very high, or they wouldn't have let Balo walk.
All right, now we're going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit. I don't believe we need another bruiser. I think they're up. I think they're good up front. Awaka is going to be that dude. They're not going to let Awaka walk. And you've already got Trey Townsend. You've got Mount Crevis, and I think they're going to try to give Henry another run at it. But now let's get to some football. But first, Brad, Circle K. Did you go there yesterday?
Yes.
Nice. What did you get?
Waters. Well, I tried to get. So they're remodeling our Circle K. So
Which
they didn't have
go to again.
Ruth Roth and LaChoya.
Okay, gotcha.
So they're remodeling. It's going to be nice. It's going to be pretty. But they didn't have any cold water, so I had to buy extra Gatorades. But then the body armors were on sale, so I bought extra body armors for Tyler, and then his teammates end up drinking all the extra body armors.
All right, I went to the Circle K in the hood off of Keno and 36th, Western Hills in the house. Mike Luke, I went in there and I got gas. It was $3.32. Check it out, Circle K, my friends. Very good stuff with Circle K. Let's see, where is this read? Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. All right, I want to talk some Arizona football now. This is for you, Bear Down Cats 96. First, I get a lot of people that are asking me, are you worried about Brent Brennan's recruiting at this point? I am not worried about his. Yeah, shout out Shug for the sure, Shug Jackson. I am not worried about his recruiting at this point, but I will say this, that by next year's class, I need to be able, in 2025 or 26, you got to start getting some really good high school kids, period, point blank.
Yeah. Because we were having these exact same conversations until the summer, I think that is now, about the guy up in rainy, smelly Seattle. He had some recruiting concerns. Yeah, Jedfish. I just really wanted to drop a rainy, smelly Seattle reference.
No, get it right. If you're going to use
it. Is it smelly, rainy?
Smelly, rainy Seattle. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
By the way, every time Jedfish tweets now or something, his thing gets spammed with smelly, rainy Seattle comments. It's fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's because he's so genuine. Yes. So are there concerns? Yes, I have some concerns. I also know he's doing a great job in state. I know they're really hitting, and again, and they've got competition because Dillingham is really ramped up. By the way, there were a lot of ASU fans who were mad at me for my tweet, by the way, about that weird video he released the other day.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that.
I thought it was weird. And they're like, "You have no sense of humor." And then one guy descended into, "You must beat your wife for fun." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I just think it's weird to like promise these kids who are working their butt off of instant gratification, and then use like, "We have to get to you when it comes out." So what you're telling me is you don't have an in at EA Sports.
That's exactly what you just said. You added yourself, Dilly.
Even if you didn't have the disc, you could say, "Oh, I get the special edition a few days early." I'll get this. But I guess that the whole thing was weird. But that I wouldn't have liked it if Brennan did it. I wouldn't have liked it if Tommy Lloyd did it. I think it was a weird thing. But so they need to recruit better. But again, it's super early in the process. They've done a few nice things recruiting wise, including landing the top and really the only Power 5 quarterback in the state for next year's class.
Right.
I don't know how good the kid's going to be, but he's it. I mean, there's really, unless someone emerges this summer, and they could with all the camps and stuff, everyone else, he's like the number 8 recruit in the state, and then the next quarterback's 19.
Right. So there's a significant dropout.
Exactly.
Sure.
So I've seen some good things. Again, I know that staff can recruit, but again, it can be a challenge to step up and have to recruit at that level after spending time at San Jose State, where you're not just a Mountain West school, you're really closer to a 1AA school in the terms of the kids you recruit, your facilities, things like that.
All right, now AZ Cats G. Before we sign off, you will maybe get a bar or two from me. But let's talk about the receivers since we have the great Tony Jones in here. I am very, very bullish on the receivers. I think people are going to find out that there are better receivers than. One thing that I didn't like about Fish last year is that I did not understand. Listen, when you got Dorian Singer, when you've got Jacob Cowan, when you got T-Mac, I totally get playing through. You're looking to play those 3 dudes. You got 3,000-yard receivers. I get it. Last year, though, I get not taking T-Mac off the field or Jacob Cowan, but I don't understand. You can only play Montana Lamonius Craig. Again, maybe Montana Lamonius Craig becomes good. He was not good last year, though. I like what Bobby Wade is saying. He wants to rotate dudes in and out. He wants to play 6 guys because honestly, I think Malachi Riley is going to break out in a big way this year. I think some people have seen his video. I think he's going to be fantastic for the Cats. I also think that there's a lot of other guys that I'm anxious to see out there. AJ Jones, one of those as well. Bringing in Raymello Murphy as well. I like the idea of being able to bring a bunch of different dudes in there, Brett Ellis.
Yeah. You name the 5 that I think are the guys who look like they should be playing.
Yeah.
Maybe 6. Don't want to leave out Lamonius.
I'm sure there's somebody I forgot.
But obviously T-Mac's going to get a lot of. He doesn't have now a sure thing like Cowing to take some of the pressure off him, and frankly, McLaughlin either. Although we all like Keon and we like some of these other guys. So you're going to see a lot of bracket coverage. You're going to see a lot of safety help. So that's going to give opportunities for these young guys to make an impact. And who's going to step up?
Right.
And who's going to demand the ball? And who's going to be that guy? And again, I think this offense is going to be – they locked in on guys. Right. And again, that you see that in the NFL where, the top 2 receivers get the bulk of the throws and then it goes to the tight end. But if they don't have 5 guys in, with 20 or more receptions, I'm going to be disappointed. Because again, I think I've seen enough from Jones that I really like him. I've seen enough from Riley that I really like the potential. That kid put up some really big numbers. Is it Raymello at a lesser school? So he's got some talent. Because you did kind of squander the kid who's now at Utah, Dorian Singer, and frankly. I wanted to see Anthony Simpson get more run, and he didn't get a ton of run at UMass, but their quarterbacks were god awful. But they just found ways to get him the ball. So I think because of this, and again, how much of it was JDL, I don't know, of locking in on 1 or 2 guys, you cost yourself some good young receivers who have left the program.
I would agree with that. All right, 1 bar for you guys. I will get here. Let's see here. I will just do this spontaneously. A rap song. Okay. Nip Hustle. Out of the garage is how you end up in charts. You end up in penthouses, end up in cars. How you start off a curb server, end up a boss. Boom. That was good. Very, very good, Brett Ellis. Very, very good. Brett Ellis.
It's post 1995 hip hop, so I have no.
I get it. I don't generally like. I generally am all Death Row Records. All right, Brad. We very much appreciate you coming on today. You will be on with us every Tuesday. This is correct, Brett Ellis.
Every Tuesday and then random other days when I can drop in. Yeah.
Very, very much appreciate you. Okay, everybody out there, you guys are fantastic. We will be back with you tomorrow as well. But for the great William Brad Ellis, the venerable William Brad Ellis, the esteemed William Brad Ellis, I am merely Mike Luke. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.